Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Michael McCaul, who is also a former U.S. prosecutor. Mr. Chairman, good to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And I want to get right into this impeachment inquiry and get your take as a former prosecutor on this indictment of Hunter Biden last week.
Well, look, these are the cleanest, easiest indictments. Gun charges are pretty easy to go forward. Wire transfers more complicated. That's going to take more time. I think they had a Speedy Trial Act to conform with, so they wanted to get these indictments done. First, I've always questioned Weiss being in charge of this in the first place. He cut the sweetheart deal. He's hardly impartial. And I think I would recommend to Merrick Garland he appoint either somebody else or an outside counsel to give this investigation more credibility.
Well, what about the credibility of the impeachment inquiry? I mean, what does that get you? What kind of tools? What more do you need? The Speaker of the House was just here saying, we want more evidence. What more evidence?
Well, it really does, because subpoenas now can subpoena grand jury material. Executive privilege does not apply when you have an impeachment inquiry. So it heightens the standards, if you will, in terms of what Congress can obtain versus just a normal legislative function subpoena. So it really does raise the standards a lot.
Are you going to be able to access Joe Biden's bank records? And I mean, is he going to be that dumb to actually have a check forwarded from Xi Jinping to his personal bank account?
I doubt it. That's why they use shell corporations. You know, my 1997 investigation into China and the Clinton campaign, they use dummy corporations, wire transfers. They don't report the taxes to conceal, you know, the evidence. And that's what Hunter Biden was doing here. You know, the fact that the judge threw the plea agreement out shows that an investigation is warranted. The fact that IRS whistleblower, and she based her throwing the plea agreement out based upon the amicus brief that the IRS tax blower, whistleblower submitted.
Right.
And the fact that the AG appointed a special counsel. This is nothing out of line. What Kevin McCarthy did is absolutely appropriate and proper.
The last time we spoke, you made a really interesting observation, and you told me that back in the days of your prosecutor days, you actually investigated whether or not China, communist China, was trying to interfere in a U.S. election. Are we at that moment once again? I mean, we're here talking about the appropriations bills and the fact that you were unable to get the Department of Defense appropriations bill to the House floor to actually take a vote. Your members are pushing back. We spoke with Kevin McCarthy about that. What about that? And what is China saying, knowing that it's actually investing resources in its Navy? Now it's got a larger Navy than the United States.
Well, that's right. Well, first of all, I've been tasked by the Speaker to assist the oversight and government reform with respect to foreign policy decisions the president may have made, or vice president at that time, with respect to money coming in, to try to tie the two. We don't have the evidence now, but we may find it later.
Sounds like China wants Joe Biden in charge of America.
Well, you know, a lot of this money is coming from China. You know, and the fact is,
what money is coming from China?
From the Chinese energy company that gave money to Hunter Biden. In addition to the mayor of Moscow's wife, you know, who gave him $3.5 billion and got exempted from the sanctions.
Right.
By the way.
It was a check for $3.5 million.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So to your point, Xi Jinping loves nothing more than to say democracy fails, it doesn't work. And the fact that Congress can't get, the United States democracy can't get its act together and pass a Department of Defense appropriation when he has $1 trillion invested in his, and we have somewhere around, I don't know, it's $830 billion. Hypersonics are a first strike capability. We don't have hypersonics. That's just one case in point. As you mentioned, their Navy, they have more ships than the United States Navy. This is no time to play politics with our national security. And believe me, Xi Jinping is the one laughing right now.
I also want to get your take on the $6 billion that has been freed up for Iran. I spoke with the former exiled crown prince the other day, Reza Pahlavi, and he said they're going to spend the money on what they want to spend it on. And yet John Kirby at the Defense Department the other day said, oh, no, there are conditions. They can only spend it where we told them to spend it on humanitarian efforts. Really?
Maria, they are so naive. And I got briefed verbally on some of this. Is a hostage swap for $6 billion. They don't know how to do hostage negotiations. Remember the JCPOA back in, Obama's day, that was at like $500 million. This is $6 billion. They told me humanitarian purposes only. We all know money's fungible. And then the president of Iran just came out and said, I'm going to spend it however I want to. And of course he is. And guess where it's going to go? It's going to go into terror proxy operations. It's going to go into building their nuclear, their nuclear, not defense system, but offensive system for a nuclear war. And guess what's happened since then? A third of the inspectors at the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, have been stripped by Iran out. And also just today, this morning, the Saudis said, hey, this deal with Israel you're trying to negotiate, we're out. It's having a damaging effect throughout the Middle East. And it all started with this very naive transaction of $6 billion. Imagine what Iran's going to do with $6 billion.
By the way, this is mind-boggling to me, the fact that Hunter Biden's company is still an equity holder of a Chinese nuclear company. I don't understand. This, as well as Chinese companies that are already sanctioned by America, are in index funds, no problem. Americans are unwittingly funding the expansion of communist China.
Yeah, this gets into our technology transfers and outward bound capital flows. We have to stop funding the PLA. We have to stop exporting technology where they built their hypersonic and the spy balloon, by the way. This has to stop. And by the way, Hunter Biden's doing this. There is a Foreign Agents Registration Act that he has to comply. If he's operating as an agent of a foreign power, he needs to comply with that.
So do you think there will be more charges coming, or is this it, the gun charges?
No, I fully expect more. And if not, it calls into question the seriousness of this administration and Department of Justice. I think it should have been sent to somebody else other than the Fen Garden, the hen garden, the Fox House. That is crazy.
Yeah.
It should be an outside counsel.
Chairman McCaul, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Good to see you. House Foreign Affairs Chairman